G'day, it's Heath here from pickandlessons.com. O'Carolan's Dream. This is such a beautiful tune. Out of all of O'Carolan's tunes, I do think this is one of my favorites, absolutely. They're all great though. Now, in this banjo lesson, we're going to take a look at an arrangement of this melody played in a chord melody style on the banjo. So, quite challenging. There's a lot of chord positions we're going to be looking at that are quite challenging for the left hand, but it just works so well, as you heard. Now, firstly, in this lesson, we're going to have a look at some of the chord shapes we're working with. We're going to look at the tuning we're out of as well. But if you head to pickandlessons.com, you better get yourself a copy of the tablature for the entire chart there. Has all the chords and all your left-hand fingering in there. You'll also be able to find the next part of this lesson where we'll break down the tune itself. So pickandlessons.com. Okay, first thing about this tune, and the way we're going to go about playing it is that we're in the key of A minor, and we're going to just alter our banjo just one string. We're going to change string 4 from a D down to a C. So what we end up with is this high G, a low C, G, B, and D, which is an interesting tuning open, but now we're not using it open at all, but it does give us access to that low C note when we're playing a C chord, which is a bit of a feature. And it actually really complements what we're going through, and it actually does help out a number of the other chords as well. So the first thing there is basically we're in standard tuning, standard G tuning, open G. The only string that's changed is string 4 instead of D. We're tuning that down to a C. So grab your tuner there and tune your D string lower to a C. All right, so we do have that open C. Now that does change our chords we're dealing with. So let's have a look at first half a dozen chords or so that we're just looking through supporting the melody. And if you're not familiar with it, the chord melody technique, basically, if we take the melody and support that with the chords that are built in the harmony. So for example, so you can hear straight away how that changes the flavor of what we're listening to. So it's great, but challenging technique though too, but certainly very rewarding. And this arrangement certainly does stand up as a really nice solo banjo piece, but of course you could throw some guitar behind there or another instrument. So looking at these chords, so we are in that slightly altered tuning with the low C. So our first chord up, and all these chords, by the way, the highest note we hear ends up forming the melody. So the melody is always the highest note we hear. That's really important. So that's the one that wants to be more present in our mix that we're picking with our fingers. So this first chord is an A minor. This is probably the most challenging chord out of the lot. That's why we're looking at it right now. The A minor chord, what we need to play here is basically little finger there on fret 4, string 4, while we're holding fret 2 there, string 3, and finger 1 on fret 1, string 2. So there's our A minor chord shape. So you'll need to make sure your hand is in a really good position. So firstly, you don't want the palm of your hand anywhere near the neck. You really do want to bring that wrist down so you can open up that fingering grip there and access, well, basically we're covering 4 frets. So fret 1, 2, and then fret 4, really important. So that wrist position, I find too the banjo neck being up this way certainly helps as well. The flatter you have that banjo, the harder that's going to be, because the further your wrist has to sort of bend forward. So in this type of context, I much prefer that banjo neck up this way, allowing that wrist to really wrap forward around the banjo neck to position itself around that chord. So little finger, second finger, first finger, and we can pinch these or brush these. There are a couple of moments in the tune where we certainly want to brush with the thumb, but otherwise if there's no marking in there, what we can do is just pinch, so thumb, finger, finger, or brush. It won't really matter, and that's kind of an individual choice as well. So there's our A minor shape. Now the second one though, the G, is easy, but because we've changed string 4 from C to D, our G shape, just 2 strings, because the melody's on the 3rd string, is going to be this chord, so 2nd fret there. So that's just one thing to keep note of, is because we have altered the tuning, standard chords don't exist. The triads will be exactly the same on the top 3 strings, so you're sweet there, but string 4, anything on string 4 we have to alter. So the G shape here is that 2nd fret on string 4 and open G. And the open G becomes the melody, that's why we're only playing 2 strings. Now, it is really worth it though, because when we hit the C chord, it's really lovely to hear that open C. So we'll get to there in a moment. So we've got the A minor, and we have our G. Now the next chord is the C. So C, as we kind of know it from open G tuning, would look like this shape with that 2nd finger, but now we don't need that there. We're still going to keep the other 2 like we would, so 1st fret, 2nd fret on those top 2 strings, but now we have that open C, so we get a lovely C chord sounding like this, with that low C in there. It's really lovely. So that's a nice compromise, getting that open C in there, so that's a nice thing. And because we're in the key of A minor, the A minor is relative to the key of C, so we get a lot of the C chord in there, so the A minor, C are relative to each other in terms of major and minor keys. And so with that low C, it is a really nice change to hear. So we have the A minor, we have the G, and the C. And even those 3 changes there sound really nice. We're heading to that low C, and it works really well. And just remember, the reason we're playing these chords in this particular way too, in terms of how many notes are in them, is because that highest note we hear is the melody. So whatever the melody is doing, we're supporting that with chords underneath. So in this case, when we reach that C chord, the melody is going to be that 2nd fret. The next C chord though, it's just a different inversion of the chord, actually, different voicing. And we've got 4th fret there and 5th fret on string 3. Just 2 notes. So that's an easy one, but there's our melody note. So the 4 chords so far, A minor and the G, our C, and a 2nd version of C. A couple more chords just before we do finish here. Now the F shape, this is another challenging chord, but again, it works really well once we move into the next chord, which is another C. So we have this F, little finger on fret 5 there on string 4, and 1st finger on fret 2 of string 3. Really be mindful of that wrist position again. This is a big stretch or large interval between those notes. If you're leaning back behind the neck this way, back this way with your wrist, you'll find you'll probably cancel out some of those notes we're hearing because your fingers are too flat. So you do need to bring that wrist forward and really work on arching those fingers over the top of the adjacent strings. There's the F. Now the last one's easy though. F goes to open C and just 2 strings, 4 and 3. Again, because of where the melody's moving. Let's highlight each of those chord shapes. We had A minor, G, C, open C, 2nd inversion of C, the F, and the C. Look, and even that sounds really pretty, doesn't it? With that low C featuring in the C chords, but then the movement with the different voicings of the chords work really well. And the richness that we get from that low C as well, I think that's great. I think it's really lovely. So just remember, we have that C string there instead of D. But other than that, standard tuning, all your triads on the top here are going to be the same. So like a triad C or a triad D, not that we have a D in the song, triad D minor we do, G or A or anything, A minor, they're all going to be the same. So whatever chord you might want to play on those top three in this tuning would be the same. Now, if you're accompanying somebody, you could go through and just find all those triad chords on the top three, and that would be a really nice way of going about it too. But in terms of playing this in the chord melody style, there's our starting point. We have several chords in there that get us going. We'll look at more of these chords as we work our way through the arrangement. So if you head over to pickandlessons.com, we're going to jump into this tune and break it down. We'll learn the melody, we'll apply those chords, and we'll work through both part A and part B for the arrangement. So pickandlessons.com, and I'll see you there.